All right, well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to Anna's Drawing Sessions. Today I want to highlight some of my older sketchbooks. As I've been going around the house, I've been wanting to pretty much highlight some of the stuff and how I started back in the day. So this is a really old sketchbook of mine. As you can see, first the titles from 1998 to 2001. It pretty much highlights my earlier career, and I'll warn you, it is not glamorous at all in any form or shape. So let's go ahead and take a peek. Okay, so one of the things that the reason why I want to highlight some of my sketchbooks, and you see some of the other artists doing this, is because it's important to let, especially younger artists, developing artists, that everybody starts somewhere. Some people knew what they want to do early on in their career, so the parents had their means to be able to provide their kid all the fancy stuff or the art fancy lessons and stuff like that. So you might be like 18 years old, and it's a guy that draws like the professionals from DC and Marvel. But I assure you, that person drew for many hours, have tons of sketchbooks, blood, sweat, and tears. So I kind of want to kind of reel you back from the over sensationalized world of social media and just kind of bring it back to a normal pace to a normal person. So this right here, this is like I said, this is an old sketchbook from 1998. This was my 1998. I was a junior, a senior in high school, and so some of the earlier drawings you see right here, they're not very impressive. At the time, I didn't have access to any digital tools like Photoshop or any of that at home, but I did have access to it in the public school system where we had a newspaper, so I kind of got my introduction to Adobe products back then. Many, 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 many girls, young ones. So all that I pretty much have access to was like stuff like this, where you can see. I used to. My mom gave me her Prismacolors. My mom was a folk artist, and so she encouraged me to do art. Now here's the one thing that I do want to tell you: if you're young, sketch for fun. Just don't be discouraged by other people being judgmental. Do not be discouraged by what you see on social media. I grew up without social media, so my social media was going to the Orlando Public Library and burying myself in their books where I would look at stuff from like Frank Frazetta and Julie Bell. What's the other? What's the God, there's a few other artists that just escape me right now, and especially Julie Bell. My goodness, what's her husband's name? It'll come up to me at some other point. But anyway, so I used to bury myself in the public library and take a look at art books, and I will borrow them and take them home and then try to sketch out of them. Or I would just sit there and look at fantasy books. They have sometimes will have D&D books, and I would just mostly like D&D books to look at the concept art. And back then, the books were done in oil. So if you have some of the first, second edition D&D books, you will see a lot of those were oil based. So, but as you can see, nothing impressive. This was me in class or whatever I was doing. I used to belong to a lot of activities in high school, so this is just me at home doodling and just doing certain things. Um, so now, not all of them are great. My anatomy wasn't great. I did had AP art. I had a really fantastic, male instructor that Mr. Bartu. I really wish I could find him so I could tell him thank you for believing in me. At the time, you wanted to get into the art program, you needed to start in your freshman year, and unfortunately, I wasn't aware of that because English wasn't my first language. So when I wanted to go into AP or advanced art towards the end of my high school years, the other teachers said no. They said I needed to start from the beginning, which means that by the time I would have been able to get into the AP classes, I would have been already graduated, so I would have never been able to made it in. And he was a really nice guy. He was not an artist himself, but he knew a lot of art history, art theory, art techniques. So he used to teach AP, and he vouched for me, and he's the reason why I was able to get into AP art in high school. Now, see, just like so many kids right here, I went through behind the body arms thing, so everybody goes through this, which is hilarious. Lots of doodles. Sometimes they were good doodles, sometimes they were bad doodles. If you grew up with Lisa Frank, you might see some Lisa Frank influences here with a lot of the swirly and stuff. And if I had color pencil, you would see a lot more colors on there. But now let's go ahead. So that is right here. This is around 2000. Let's see now. This is like 1998, 1999. put the sketchbook down for a while, which if you ever been an artist, you tend to do this. You tend to pick up different sketchbooks at different points. I have a closet full of sketchbooks, and each sketchbook is different for, is used for a different reason. And I put the sketchbook that I picked it back up in 2001. So at this point, I have gone through my community college. I got my first associates in fine arts, and I was a caricature artist for SeaWorld and Busch Gardens. I started in 1998 for Cayman's Art Shops. They're still around to today. They've been around since the 70s. So if you actually go to SeaWorld or Busch Gardens or like Six Flags and you see Cayman's Art Shop, they're a pretty cool shop to work for, and they'll teach you sales and a bunch of stuff. So if you get a chance to work for them, do so. It is a high stress job. I'm not gonna lie. If you don't draw, you don't eat. That's the way it is. So if you want to learn how to draw to eat, become a character artist. So, but fantastic company if you want to kind of get your foot into the early career. Okay, so right here, this goes to 2001. So I got my earlier career doing caricatures at SeaWorld. And by this point, I have just graduated from my associate's degree, and I didn't know what I want to do myself. I don't, all I knew is that I want to do fantasy art. I did not want to do anything too crazy, and at the time, again, I still was not making too much money. I was married at this time to my first husband, and I didn't have a lot of disposable income. So my tools were whatever sketchbook I had available and my trusty Bic pens that I will have. This is a whopping 25 cents at the time. So I used to draw a lot on ballpoint pen. I liked how it felt. I liked how it looked. So a lot of these you're gonna see there's a lot of ballpoint pen. As you can see, my anatomy got a little bit better, more dynamic at the time. There's a lot more rhythm and flow to the body then. But again, that's just from 1998 to 2001. So this is just we're going through my first degree. You already see the first big leap into my art style. Um, I will say going to art school, and I explain this to people, draw because it's something fun. Draw because it's something that you get joy out of. Draw because, it's a form of expression. But once you want to become more proficient at it, I got a bug. I call it the bug, and I wanted to stop doing just the fun doodle stuff, and I wanted to be better at it. So I went to school and went to what I call the broccoli art, where you get to paint styrofoam, you get to do 1, 2, 3 point perspective, you get to do shading, the color wheel. So it's boring stuff at first, but once you learn the fundamentals and you bring it back to application, then you see how much better your artwork becomes because now you have the additional knowledge to be able to tackle some of these things. So yeah, so this was me just kind of post my first associates because I have 3 degrees. So this was after my first degree, 2001. You can see right here. And what I would do at the time, I was still working for SeaWorld and Busch Gardens. I think I was there until like 2002 was my last year working for Cayman's Hard Shops. I need to go back through my stuff. And sometimes we will have really boring days. So when you're sitting there waiting to draw people, you just go out there and you have to summon people in so that you could draw a crowd. But sometimes there was no crowd to be summoned. So, and back then we didn't have smartphones like we do today, where if you wanted a picture of, I don't know, Will Smith, you could just Google it up. That was not a thing back then. The latest technology I had was, I think, a Nokia chocolate with the game Snake in it. So we were at the mercy of whatever magazines was in the booth, which are our our boss at the time, he's still within the company. His name is Dino Castroline, fantastic mentor. I wish I could get a hold of him again. He was just, I call him like my art father because he took the time to teach me a lot of stuff that I learned while I was in that career, in that environment. And he's just the nicest person on earth, and I learned so much from him. So he was a big influence in my earlier career. But in between all of that, this is pretty much what I would do. I would just sit there when there was not even a soul to summon out. I would just kind of draw these ideas. And technically, this one actually goes like this. And I would go, it's like, okay, how do scales look? How do fish stuff? And because I was working at SeaWorld and Busch Gardens, on break time, I could just kind of go off and then just look at like some of the animals and then some of the critters nearby, and then I'll take some of those textures and all that stuff and just kind of implement it within my drawing. So I highly suggest for folks to either go to, Go to your local zoo, go to your local botanical garden. In fact, just go for a walk in your neighborhood. I walk my neighborhood almost every day, and I love taking pictures of the wildflowers and the squirrels and deer and all that stuff that's nearby. If you're in urban jungle, I get it. There's not a lot of wildlife there, but there's still a lot of people there, so you could draw from real life. All right. So this right here is really cool. So as you remember from earlier in the video, this was the original concept for this. And I will tell you, a lot of my earlier doodles are a reflection of what I was into at the time. Back in the early 90s, I went from Caribbean music to I come to the States and I fell in love with rock music. So I was listening to stuff like the Mighty Mighty Bostons, the Hippos, Less Than Jake, Nine Inch Nails, Stabbing Westward. So a lot of that punk, Pearl Jam, REM, all that stuff. So you can see a lot of that stuff reflected on my earlier artwork. And I really like the squirrel that I drew. So later on, I redrew it again in 2001. This is post my first degree. So maybe I need to go back and redraw this character one more time. I think it's kind of cool. That tail's going to be a pain in the butt if I try to animate it. But yeah, it's kind of fun just to do that. And there's a lot of artists that do that. They go back to the old sketchbooks and then they try to draw an updated version of it. Alex Ross is an excellent example to check out. He would show the he's a very well-known artist, and especially in the DC Marvel universe. He drew these hyper-realistic paintings of these heroes, and he was like one of the first people that did it. So I will highly suggest to check him out. But yeah, he shows his stuff, and so here's again, this is just me just putting ideas down. I was look at bugs and stuff around me, and come up with these concepts. You see a lot of liquid because I used to work at SeaWorld. Can you tell? Lizards. Um, yeah. So yeah, but just have fun. Now, at this point around here, so this is ballpoint pen. At this point, I started switching to. I ended up with like a gel pen set. You can see that the line weight is a little different from what you see right here. Not by much, but I mean, I could see the difference, but other folks might not. But you could tell like there was a little more fluid to the strokes in the pen. And I always love coloring or drawing with color versus just black and white and pencil. I like to do inks in different styles, and I do the same thing with my comic book stuff. I normally draw in indigo blue. Oh, excuse me. So you can see right here, just me. Again, this is just me having fun. Oh, Lord. Lordy Lord, look at that hand. Look at them banana hands, as I like to call it. Blah, 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 blah. Banana hands. So yeah, just have fun. Draw from real life. Do some references. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Your sketchbook is kind of like your diary. It's your thoughts. It's very personal. I've had back when I was an art teacher, ITT and IADT, I would get students that they'll be really shy to show me their sketchbook, and some of them would give me a disclaimer ahead of time. And after reading the content on it, I understand what they were very embarrassed to kind of show me the content. But me being an educator and me being understanding that I have students of full walks in life, I will go, hey, I know the content is probably not appropriate for the environment, but if you allow me to, I'll use some tracing paper and I will give you pointers on the important stuff. So that's what I would do. So that way they feel welcome, they feel comfortable, and it will motivate them to be in class and motivate them to do better. And a lot of them kind of got away from that stuff and they actually started hyper focusing more and more their professional stuff versus their very personal stuff. But yeah, no, your sketchbooks, you can have sketchbooks for anything. You can have sketchbooks for brain farts, you can have sketchbooks for just fun ideas like this. You can have ones for concepts. Again, this was a funny story. That's my first husband. Yes, Jason. You could tell that I was a caricature artist at the time. Um, but yeah, so thank you for allowing me to share with you a little bit of a time capsule in my life. It's currently 2025, and this is from 2001 and 1998. So you're looking at sketches that I did almost 20 years ago. And I love to kind of go back and take a look. Some of these I haven't seen in a long time. Actually, they look very different on camera, which is a little frustrating. I wish I could kind of get a better picture to show you. But I guess the point that I'm trying to say is we all got to start somewhere. It's okay if you don't have the best tools. Like I said, I call this my 25-cent art kit because it's all I could afford at the time. We all have some rough times in your life, and you know, if you really want to pursue art, first just do it for fun. Just enjoy it, get into the rhythm, get into the concept of just being creative. And then once you are ready, go ahead and then move on to actually refining your skill set, and never be intimidated by other artists. It is so easy to do today with social media. There's been times I looked at people's portfolio and I'm going, wow, my portfolio looks like dog doo doo compared to yours. But at the end of the day, I remind myself that what I'm seeing is the surface. This person invested a lot of hours, and I instead of me just kind of going, well, I don't want to talk to that person because I don't think I'm worthy, I would just sit there and I'll ask them, it's like, hey, I like your style and your technique. Can you please tell me more about it? So that way I learn from their experience. And as long as you're nice to most artists and you're not weird about it, because let me tell you, some people are weird around artists. But just be polite. And if they're able to, a lot of artists is a very welcoming community. They will tell you what they did as best as they can within the time limit. Obviously, conventions are sometimes hard because especially if there's a line, they don't have a lot of time to talk to you. But if you're ever in a comic convention or an anime convention, the artist there and there's no line, take the time to talk to them. Have some questions prepared for them, and just ask them about their technique and their thought process, and a lot of them will be very happy to walk you through it. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys joining me. If you like more of this content, let me know. I will go ahead and continue making this type of stuff. I have an entire bookshelf of sketchbooks that I would like to share. So if you see something you like or you think this is a cool idea, just let me know and I'll keep making this kind of content. So please like and subscribe. I always appreciate you guys, and y'all take care. Till next time.